I'm not a huge fan of Boruto. Full disclosure, I saw the movie, then watched the anime up until around when they started playing Uno, then returned for the TV adaptation of the movie. For the mangi, I read summaries, looked up highlights, and asked a friend for a detailed rundown. None of it really wowed me. So we're gonna go through a hard revision of the first arc, and hopefully create something better that could feasibly springboard into a more interesting story. But before doing so, let's set one thing straight. Boruto will be the protagonist of this script. Like many others, I was more interested in Sarada than Boruto. Sarada Gaiden was far and away the best arc I saw, and it had no Boruto in it. But that's not in the cards for us. We're sticking with Boruto's dad's son. However, since we're starting something new, I will be changing up the cast. First, I'm getting rid of Mitsuki. He has an interesting origin as a clone created by a seemingly reformed villain, but after his introduction, he was shunted to the wayside. And according to my research, this is worse than the mangi, where he plays even less of a role. So we're discarding him, and replacing him with a new OC, Masako. I'm taking this design from an anime genin that nobody has or ever will care about. We'll get into Masako's personality later. Also, let's say she doesn't have a last name. She's an orphan and no one ever bothered to give her one, including me. Second, Sarada Uchiha. I'm tweaking her design a bit. I don't like that she's Sasuke but a girl. That's boring. Instead, I'd like her to have a mixture of features. Namely, we're going to change her hair to be a blend of Sasuke and Sakura's. Also, we're keeping her anime outfit, because her manga outfit is... I'm not even going to entertain that. Third, Konohamaru, Sarutobi. Literally no one will complain that I'm scrapping him. His replacement? Junhara. She's basically Mirai Sarutobi, but with slightly different features. She's younger than Father Hamaru, who's 27. Jun is like 22 to 24. And finally, Boruto Uzumaki himself. I'm changing his design too. This version of Boruto has a mix of traits instead of just being little Naruto Jr. He's got red hair from his Uzumaki blood, and those nasty soulless eyes from his Hyuga blood. Now then, we have a revised cast, so we can begin. We open on the road. Team 13, consisting of Jun, Boruto, Sarada, and Masako, is en route to the land of whirlpools. This is the ancestral state of the Uzumaki clan, which we'll get into later. Team 13 has been sent here in response to a distress message received by the Leaf Village. While traveling, Jun notices that the team is being tailed by what she assumes is bandits. So she probes her apprentices on what to do. Sarada speaks first, saying they should try to talk down the bandits. Masako argues that they'd lose the element of surprise, and that instead they should ambush and kill the bandits. Boruto calls them both insane, saying they should just outrun their followers. Jun decides that she'll talk to the bandits, while the three genin hide in case things go sour, which they do. A fight breaks out between our heroes and let's say a dozen bandits, some of which are semi-proficient ninja. And we're introduced to the fighting styles of our ragtag team. Boruto activates his Byakugan, using the gentle fist to get in close and scrap with his enemies. Sarada relies heavily on Genjutsu, tricking her enemies with illusions to get the upper hand. Also note that she has not yet awoken her Sharingan. Masako is an archer. She's very acrobatic, leaping around, running on trees, doing trick shots, while keeping away from her enemies. And lastly, Jun wields sickles as her main weapons, relying heavily on speed. I think it'd be cool if she uses Flying Raijin like Minato, but she hasn't mastered it. She's only managed to create functioning seals on her sickles, so they're the only thing she can teleport to. Anyway, the battle is a decisive victory for Team 13. While bandits survive retreat into the woods, Masako wants to hunt them down, getting her teased by Boruto and chided by Sarada. Jun decides to let the bandits go, hoping they'll warn others that there's a new sheriff in town. Our heroes move on, reaching their destination in contact, a young woman named Yuna. Yuna takes them into town, showing what Whirlpool Village is like, which is imperfect. The village was once ruins, but is now somewhere between slums and something decent. The land is inhabited by the remnants of the Uzumaki clan, the top deserters from the war and the general disenfranchised. Yuna explains that despite her and others trying to make the town into somewhere worth living, roving bandits have slowed progress. Hence the distress signal asking for help. And help Team 13 does. For a brief period, the team works on restoring the village, fixing roofs, carrying lumber, farming. Or rather, the genin help, while Jun kicks her feet up.
Impress me with your chakra control, and I'll pitch in.
The Jonin tells her pupils after they complain.
Otherwise, I've got relaxing to do.
Restoration then is intercut with training sessions. Our trio hone their chakra control via concentration exercises, where one focuses while the others try to distract them. Masuko is best at it, Sarada worst. The young Uchiha becomes frustrated with training and toiling, complaining that manual labor is beneath her. Masuko is happy to help, whereas Boruto is reluctant to participate due to how people treat him. The townsfolk stare at him whenever he's out, treating him with caution and keeping him at arm's length. Yuna explains that her people are wary of Uzumakis due to past ills the clan has brought. Jun then has a heart-to-heart with Boruto over feelings of isolation, telling him that her ninja way is to protect everyone, not just people who like her. This convinces Boruto to adopt the same principle and help with the restoration. However, he's still bothered by the Leaf Village's inaction when a neighbor is suffering so close by. Sarada defends Konoha, saying the Hokage can't be everywhere, while Masuko focuses instead on inspiring change. Jun just comments that indifference is the way of the world. Our tenure of peace is broken when a boy flags Team 13 down one day. He tells them that Yuna is in danger, asking them to go rescue her. So they run into the woods until eventually reaching a lakeside house, and they find Yuna at the end of failed negotiations with our main villain, Kenji. I'm just gonna copy Sora completely for this one. He's from filler, so I'm sure nobody cares. Kenji is almost as old as Jun and Yuna, putting him in his very late teens, and he leads the bandits harassing Whirlpool Village. Yuna reveals that the meeting was meant to discuss an end to hostilities, but that it fell through due to Team 13's encounter with Kenji's men at the beginning of this script. Kenji reveals that he's now lured Yuna out as bait to take down our heroes. Jun asks after his motivations, and Kenji answers.
This land belongs to the Uzumaki. It's only fitting that a true heir take it.
Sarada laughs.
You mean Boruto? He's too dumb to be in charge of anything. Hey!
Masuko shakes her head.
I think he's kinda smart. Ish. Mr. Kenji, what responsibilities will Boruto have to...
An enraged Kenji conjures water clones and attacks alongside his men. The Genin defend Yuna while Jun faces Kenji, and we learn that the Bandit Lord is a puppet user. He hangs back from the fight, using his puppets to harry our heroes, forcing Jun to split between fighting him and protecting our less experienced allies. Kenji focuses his attacks on Boruto, calling him a traitor to their name and yelling that he therefore isn't a true Uzumaki. In the end, a second bandit gang arrives to fight the first and our heroes. Team 13 retreats to let the bandits duke it out, fleeing back to the village. Here comes a minor interlude. Upon their return, the villagers are mad at our heroes for their interference, and fear Kenji will do something reckless. Yuna tries to defend Team 13, as does Sarada, who stands up to the crowd. Masuko gets her bow ready, but Boruto smacks it down.
Will you stop trying to kill people? For 5 seconds.
Our heroes rest at Yuna's house, where Jun gets the woman to tell them about Kenji. The bandit warlord apparently is a true Uzumaki. Not only that, he was once in line to lead the village, albeit behind multiple siblings. However, unlike the rest of his family, he wasn't born with the trademark Uzumaki red hair, so he was cast aside, which ironically saved him, as his family was killed during a coup. Since then, a string of failed leaders stepped up and were killed off, until eventually people stopped trying. Boruto and Jun are unmoved by the story, with Jun declaring that Kenji's hold on the past will only bring further suffering. Sarada and Masuko have more sympathy, with the former hoping to save the bandit, while the latter laments that they'll probably have to kill him. Boruto and Sarada then agree that there's something wrong with Masuko. We get a brief montage as our heroes prep the village for the raid, setting up traps, training the villagers, working on chakra control. Jun participates this time, co-leading alongside Yuna. We see Boruto trying to inspire the villagers, and failing miserably. When Sarada takes a crack though, she proves to be effective, boosting morale, and giving her ammo to tease Boruto. Our climax is after days of preparation, at dusk. Kenji and his men raid the village, triggering a final battle. After the initial clash between villagers and bandits, we get 2 skirmishes. 1, Kenji and his puppet versus Jun, and 2, Kenji versus Boruto, Sarada, and Masuko. Now you're probably wondering
how I ended up in this situation.
I mean, you're probably wondering how Kenji is in two places at once. And the answer is, one is a clone. Kenji is actually splitting his power here. The clone is the one fighting Jun. Yes, it'll die in one hit as clones do, but to reach it, Jun has to get past the puppet it controls. Meanwhile, the real Kenji can devote his lesson power to our trio of genin. Clone Kenji maintains a distance from Jun, forcing her to chase him across the battlefield and contend with his puppet. So to claim victory, Jun throws a sickle into the air, using Flying Raijin to warp to it. Then she uses Wind Release to vacuum Kenji up toward her, nixing his mobility, then Fire Release to consume the clone and his guardian puppet. Meanwhile, our genin fight the real Kenji, who refuses to hear Sarada out when she tries to convince him to stop his mad quest. The bandit rants about returning things to how they were before, as they should be. He stays away from Boruto's superior taijutsu, keeping our heroes on the ropes via a flurry of ninjutsu. At a disadvantaged distance, Boruto takes a severe wound, nearly putting him out of commission, and awakening Sarada's Sharingan. The young Uchiha takes the lead then and comes up with a plan. She fights Kenji up close, now barely able to match his movements, while Masago's arrows steer the bandit away from Boruto. Until suddenly, Sarada and Masago both withdraw. Then Kenji realizes something. He's been under Sarada's genjutsu. She and Masago weren't directing him away from Boruto. They were bringing him closer.
And now?
A bloodied Boruto says, smirking.
You're in range.
Then we see the yin-yang symbol. We see the stance, and Boruto unleashes the 8 trigrams 64 palms, packing Kenji all the way up. The battle ends then as the bandits flee, and the day is won. Our epilogue is brief. Yuna is almost unanimously voted in as village chief. A celebration occurs. Masago goads Boruto into dancing despite his bad wounds, and the two tease Sarada into dancing despite her being too cool. Jun tells Yuna to keep in touch, and promises the village the help it needs to prosper. Then Team 13 leaves with Kenji as a prisoner, heading home as the heroes of Whirlpool Village. That's it for the Land of Whirlpools arc. Let's get into the why behind some of the changes. First, the setting. One thing that annoyed me about Boruto's story in the manga is that we're always in Konoha. In the anime, we go to different places, including playing Uno in the Land of Waves. But that's all anime canon, which is basically just a fancy way of saying some of it might matter, most of it probably doesn't. I want this story to visit a place we haven't been before, and subsequent stories to continue the trend. We can revisit old locations occasionally, but Boruto should be an expansion of the Naruto world, not a contraction. Speaking of, Boruto himself. I understand that post-timeskip Boruto is a completely different beast, but the pre-timeskip version, which ran for 7 years, was way too similar to Naruto. I think that was an immediate turn-off for a lot of people, because it definitely was for me. Yes, Boruto was more skilled, yes, he cheated, which we'll circle back to, but he uses the Rasengan, shadow clones, looks like Boruto's dad, acts like the kid version of Boruto's dad. Nobody wanted to see that. It's the boring, safe option. Contrast this with something like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where each protagonist is new and fresh and different. People enjoy how the personality, appearance, and skills of the main characters shift with each story. They don't want to see the protagonist repeat, because they've already seen that. And along with said protagonist is the cast. I don't like Boruto's new generation, and honestly, I don't think Ikemoto or Kishimoto do either. And I don't mean Boruto and Kawaki. I mean everyone but them. They're just dittos with copy-paste personalities. Most of them are absent 90% of the time. In this, I wanted to deviate from the mangakas. Masago and Jun are new additions that are just as important as Boruto and Sarada. Hopefully their personalities shone through in this script, and would continue to shine throughout the story. This arc introduced a lot of concepts that would ultimately be fleshed out later. The Hokage's role in world affairs, Masago's killer instinct, Jun's honing of Flying Raijin, and the themes it introduces are, I think, more interesting than the OG mangi. The OG is mostly about Boruto's relationship with his dad, and about cheating versus doing things the right way. But only half of those are interesting. The other half is after-school special meh. What's more investing to me is exploring the reach of the Hokage versus the reality of the world, alongside a meta-commentary about clinging to the past. Kenji is, after all, consumed by nostalgia in the same way some fans are. He won't accept anything other than the past, because that's when he was happiest. But not only is the past he longs for more flawed than he's willing to acknowledge, he also loses to Boruto, who is, and looks to, the future. Lastly, this tale is obviously more grounded than Boruto's. Doubling down on aliens was, in my humble opinion, a terrible decision. Naruto Uzumaki should be the ceiling of the power level in this series, but in the manga he's closer to the floor. Lessening that power creep will make these stories, these fights, these characters easier to digest, and make their struggles that much more intense. Anyway, that's all I've got for this one. Like and subscribe, because I've got more rewrites, fixes, and whatnot in the works. Speaking of, for my next rewrite, we're leading the Inquisition against an ancient magister. Until then, though, cheers.